Hello YouTube! Yesterday I was browsing the 𝘺𝘰𝘵𝘵𝘮 website for ideas, and I came across an article that I actually agreed with, which is crazy because if you know the guy who writes these articles, you know he's a completely black-pilled individual who believes that natural bodybuilding is a joke and that it's impossible to look good as a natty, and therefore he is my complete antithesis. And yet I found myself really in alignment with everything he had to say. And the article in particular was about the fitness industry. And in it, the guy was attempting to prove that in truth, this business that surrounds this sport that we love so much, or sports with an S, is in reality a pyramid scheme. And you know, it's a reflection I've had in the past, but I never managed to put it together the way he had. And I think that's because he's black-pilled. You know, we can say whatever you want about these people. It's true that they're completely pathetic and that their ideology is very dangerous. But at the same time, having a very negative outlook on life allows you to see through a ton of bullshit. Because since you're constantly waiting for people to fuck you over, whenever there is even a slight chance of that happening, you're on the ball. You immediately see what is going on. And so the guy actually brought up some points that I want to share with you that I synthesized and also remixed with my own ideas to come up with a complete thesis and a complete argument. Now, I'm not going to try and prove you that the fitness industry is evil or that it's just out there to get your money. That you already knew. Now, what I want to do instead today is I want to show you the mechanisms that the industry uses that makes it a pyramid scheme, and I also want to discuss the psychology of the people who fall for it, because it's very easy to say that people who buy supplements are just suckers and idiots, but it's always the case that with these types, you're going to find that what truly made them fall for the trap and the hook is not a lack of intellect. Instead, it's a lack of emotional control, because Ponzi scheme, pyramid schemes mostly work off of your emotions. They're very strong at manipulating your psychology. Now, for the people who don't know what a pyramid scheme is, I'm going to insert an illustration right there. And this one pertains directly to the fitness industry. So when it comes to the structure, the reason why it's shaped as a pyramid is because that type of scheme is a manipulation of sorts that is going to allow a very small percent of people to benefit greatly from the work and effort of the majority, aka the base. When it comes to YouTube Fitness, the base are the minions. It's the people who buy the supplements, who buy the programs, and really keep the industry alive. And when it comes to the other two stratas, the top two stratuses, it's going to be influencers and people on social media, the figureheads, quote unquote, who occupy the second one. And then the first one, the very top of the pyramid, is occupied by the industry, by the factories that make the supplements, the people that are going to hire these influencers, that are going to use them, that are going to sponsor them, etc., etc. And if you know how pyramid schemes functions, you know that they start from the top down, meaning that the people that initiate the movement are always at the top, and the creation of the base structure underneath is the continuation of the plan that makes it lengthy and that makes it survive in time. Without it, of course, the pyramid would die because the people at the top actually produce nothing. They only create products that then can be consumed by people who produce energy resources, and it goes beyond just money. It's also attention. You'll see that in the game of fitness, your attention is also extremely valuable. Now, there's already something to be said about that type of structures, and that is that it should be absolutely impossible to keep it going in time, because surely the people at the bottom who get taken advantage of should at some point rebel. They should realize what is going on. And yet they don't. And the explanation for that is quite simple. It's because these people still believe that they're benefiting from the structure. It's why I said that it's good to not be too hasty in judging these individuals and calling them idiots. They are being sucked in because their desires are being ignited. There is something that they want. And usually with pyramid schemes, the something can range from money to fame to whatever in truth. Most Ponzi schemes in real life work with money. You take somebody, you tell them, hey, come work for me, you're going to sell that type of product to a wide area of people, and you're going to make a ton of cash. This is the hook. It is the bait. It's the thing that sucks you in. In fitness, we're going to see that it's not necessarily money that attracts people. It's something much more intangible, which also makes it much more dangerous. But this means that once you are past the hook, past the desire, and you see the Ponzi scheme for what it is, you also realize that it's an entirely parasitic relationship. One that is sustained by the fact that the people who are being sucked dry by the parasite don't realize that the imbalance in the pyramid is directly costing them resources. Let me remind you that the fitness industry in the US alone nets $30 billion a year. That's a lot of money. It's why I wanted to make this video, because I'm sure that some of you will tell me, oh, it's anyone knows that the industry is evil and sells nonsense. Well, apparently you know, but not these people, because we're talking about literal millions of people who empty their wallets in the pocket of the industry. And again, that's in the US alone. That is alarming because, as you all know, fitness is free. Lifting is free. Yes, you pay for your home gym equipment, yes, you pay for a membership, but the information and the knowledge you can get for free on the internet. All of the books are available on PDF form. All of the videos that are going to teach you the basics and even way below the basic are available for free. So why do people feel the need to actually pay money? Well, this is something I want to develop. But I want to point out the fact that the people who fall for the scheme first and foremost because of the influencers. It's why we call them influencers, and any type of Ponzi scheme has them. It's why I made a clear distinction between the second and first stratas. I could have mixed the companies and the infrastructures and the industry per se with the people that sell the products it creates, but I didn't. And I made this distinction for a very clear reason. The people that sell you the product, the influencers on social media, are close to you on purpose. It's by design, because if they weren't, they couldn't sell you the product. The reason why you purchase is because you engaged your trust in another human, a human that you feel connected to. If you know my theory about fanboyism, this is directly correlated with that. A faceless industry and mega corporation would have absolutely no possibility to sell you stuff because you would never buy it. You would not feel emotionally connected to it. Whereas if it hires an influencer that you trust, now it can tap directly into your emotional reserves. Now it's much easier to sell you these products. And it's especially true when you consider the fact that most people, most fanboys, are completely incapable of realizing that the guy that they idolize so much is actually living off of them, that he is the mosquito and they are the prey. If you point it out, they will immediately refuse that idea and they will tell you that the guy is working for their best interest. Of course, that is absolutely untrue, but this idolization process is an integral part, especially of the fitness industry. Without it, the process of stealing the resources of the bottom user base, the minions, is absolutely impossible. And so, to continuously suck the blood of these people, it needs to stay in place. And we'll see that there are mechanisms put in place so that it keeps going, because every single Ponzi scheme aims to last in time. If it's just destroyed by the simple revelation of its nature, then you understand it's not going to go anywhere. But a very simple way to actually get yourself out of the dream and wake up from the nightmare in truth is a very simple realization. And that realization is that they need you more than you need them. And this is not limited to Ponzi schemes or fitness industries. It also is a truth that in real life is going to save you a lot of time because it's going to remove you from toxic relationships. An example I like to use, and that many people sort of realize deep down but never actually actualize and that they never act on for obvious reasons, is the fact that most governments also function as Ponzi scheme. A very small percent of the population rules over a majority of the population and steal its money through taxes. Now, you can argue that the benefit that you get from paying these taxes outweighs the fact that you are technically being enslaved. It's not something I'm going to discuss today, but just keep in mind that it's the same thing that keeps the fitness industry going. The people who pay into it think that they're getting a benefit. I believe personally, and it's something we're going to prove as we go on with this video, that at the end of the day, you get absolutely nothing for your money. If anything, you get negatives, meaning that not only is your money disappearing, you are paying for a malus. You are paying for something that is going to make your life harder. So for anyone who is, in a sense, willing to open their eyes and to not let that type of hierarchical organization weigh upon them, keep in mind one thing. The most vital part of the pyramid is the bottom. If you remove the bottom, the pyramid crumbles. Whereas if you remove the top of the pyramid, it just stops being a pyramid, but the structure is still sound. Case in point, you're going to think I'm obsessed with this idea, and I sort of am. If you tomorrow remove the government, you wouldn't die. Your life wouldn't change that much, and the country wouldn't just evaporate in thin air. Whereas if the taxpayers stopped paying money, the government would absolutely crumble. This is the same for every single pyramid scheme. And it's a hope, in a sense, because it means that you have power. The minions have the power because they have the number. They are ruled by the minority because of their ignorance, something we're also going to cover afterwards. Now, why are the minions giving their money and energy? Why are the minions willingly enslaving themselves? Well, it's because, one, they don't think it's enslavement because they believe that they're getting something from it. But what is that something? What do you get when you purchase a product from the fitness industry? Well, for the most part, what you purchase is the ability to resemble the person that sells you the product. And the best example of that is Instagram. How many people, by a show of hands, do you follow on Instagram that have something that you want in life, be it good looks, a good situation, a nice looking car, or a pretty girlfriend, that you follow strictly because you wished you had that, because you wish that the guy was you? That is fairly common, actually. It's, I think, the most common type of Instagram influencers for young men. Now, second question. Do you think that watching this guy and consuming his content is inching you forward towards your goal? Do you think that watching him drive a sports car is making it better and is making it more likely that you at some point will have a sports car? The answer is no. And if anything, by you trying to vicariously live your life through the guy, by consuming his content, you are actually losing time. You are moving away from your goal. This is, of course, very hard to realize and to recognize as you consume, because when you consume, you are also being consumed in a sense by the action. It's an all-encompassing thing that we humans do. It's why we like consuming so much. It takes us away from the present moment, but the issue is that when that happens, you also lose sight of your goals, which is exactly what these people want. It's why they push that image of success in your face. It's to stop you from thinking and to, in a sense, turn your brain off. They want you to focus on your desire, on the instantaneous gratification. And what could be more gratifying than leaving the goal that is so far off for you through the life of someone else? And then they plug the product. Now that your brain is primed to accept the idea that by consuming whatever the guy gives you, you're going to get closer to that thing he shows to you, then selling the product becomes much easier. That, of course, is a mirage. I hope that you have realized at this point that not only is this strategy put in place just to get you to buy something and has absolutely no incidence on your ability to get your dream, but most importantly, the very people that sell that to you don't have the dream themselves. All of these sports cars on Instagram, all of these guys with pretty girls, all of that is bullshit. These girls are escorts. They're not there with the guy. He's not friends with them. He doesn't bang them. At the end of the shoot, they get a paycheck, they go home. All of that is an illusion. But why? Ask yourself this question. Why would a guy hire girls to show up on his Instagram just to have the ability to flex? Do you think that these people have that much ego? They do, but it's most importantly because they have perfectly realized that by doing that, they're tapping into something that you desire, which means that you're much more likely to buy into their products. And supplements are the same thing. But with supplements, it's done with muscles. You are showing the physique of a good-looking guy, of a muscular guy, and then the supplement is attached to that image, which makes you believe, even if you don't realize it, that you unconsciously think that by purchasing the product, you are going to look like the guy. Of course, it sounds simplistic, and when I say it out loud, you tell me, man, it can't be that easy. But in truth, most of marketing is very easy. It works off of simple psychological biases. And the second the biases are explained out loud, they lose all their power. But the issue is that because they play off of your primal instincts, even if you know it, the next time you'll see it, you'll still fall for it. Example, I can explain to you for 4 hours, and I've done so in the past, how social media hijacks your libido by using the image of females. You can listen to me and believe in me 100%. After that, I'm going to show you a picture of a pretty woman in her underwear. Is your brain not going to react to it just because you know? Absolutely not. Your instincts are still going to be triggered. It will take your reason afterwards to rein the instincts in. The issue is that many people don't do that. Many people stop at instinct. They don't create a barrier to protect themselves from being scammed. It doesn't make them dumb, it makes them human. But I hope that by me exposing the methods, it's going to make it easier for you to create that barricade around your mind so that you don't actually get sucked in by this industry. Now, we could also say that it is not necessarily that you want to resemble the guy or have what he has, but that you want to be him. And that sometimes happens, which would be more ambitious in a sense. It means that you have realized that you're at the bottom of the pyramid and that you're just a minion and you want to make it to the second stratus. Because if you can get there, you can finally actually use the influence you're going to get to yourself, accumulate resources, riches, etc. And most people in pyramid schemes are also sold that dream. They're told, hey, right now I'm selling you a package to sell to your friends and to your family. And at some point, you, if you grind enough, will be the one to sell packages to other people, just like I'm doing now. The issue is that it never happens because, as I explained to you, the top of the pyramid was created first. And the people that are making up the roster of that top of the pyramid don't want anyone to break through. They do not want economical mobility. They want a glass ceiling. They want you to be able to see their success because it makes you salivate at the thought, but the second you try to jump, you're going to hit the glass ceiling. And that is the point. You see that on Instagram all the time. How many young men on steroids, grams of steroids, who look tremendous but have a few thousand followers and will never make it big? What convinced them to sacrifice their health? Well, it was the image of people who did the same thing and got something. But the issue is that at this point, the scheme, the industry is entirely clogged. And so the only money left to make in reality is in scamming other people that are lower than you. Because even amongst the minions, there are hierarchies. Case in point, people who buy like essential oil in real life, they get scammed, but then what happens? They turn to their family and friends to take some of the weight off of their shoulders. So they're spreading the misery, and the people that they scam afterwards are the people closer to them. This is how vicious a Ponzi scheme really is. At the end of the day, the few that make it and escape the state of minion cheat to do so, but their success don't really lead to anything. If anything, the few that manage only create an incentive for people to cheat as well, because the more success, the more of an appetence people at the bottom of the pyramid are going to have to keep climbing, and therefore it creates a sense of hope. But it's false hope. Just look at the amount of people that still play the lottery, even though the chances of winning are almost 0%. Why do they keep wasting their money in something that will never result in anything? Well, it's because they are shown the image of success continuously, which keeps the hope alive. The news always shows people who won millions of dollars. Why? Where is the news in that? Why is it worth reporting? Well, it's because it keeps people playing. And this goes to show that the means used to sold the product are much more potent than the product themselves. Most of the marketing efforts go into managing to create the image of success that the product is supposed to convey. The product is bunk, it can do nothing, and it won't change anything, because at the end of the day, what you are being sold is a dream. And therefore, if you look at what the fitness industry sells, and you think about it for a second, you realize that it aligns perfectly with what most Ponzi schemes are doing. Look at the products that are available for purchase. You have supplements which in truth don't do much. I mean, they're going to give you a small edge, but nothing major. You have training programs which are nothing special. I make training programs. Anyone who still pays for them is an utter fool. Realizing that you can make them yourself is one of the best things that can happen to you. And at the end of the day, the ones that are available for purchase tend to be garbage. And the reason for that is also clear. It's because the YouTuber that creates the program is more interested in the outside image of the program than the program itself. All of the energy goes into the marketing and not making something special. And this is why they're so terrible, but it's also why they sell so well. Diet plans, lifestyle coaching, all of that is the same thing. You take common sense and you repackage it to make it hype, to make it palatable and desirable. This is how the business functions. This is how pyramid schemes continuously manage to sell their product. Have you seen the type of things they sell in real life? Candles, oil, all of that is useless. No one needs that in their life. So how do they manage to sell it? Well, it's because that's not the thing that they're selling. They're selling something else. But how do they get there? How do you get to a point where you can sell anything based on the image you're going to attach to it? Well, if you look at the fitness industry, I think it's fairly obvious. You create people, and I use the verb create on purpose, that are going to themselves project an image that is going to be attached to a product. It's what I told you earlier with people who are on PEDs and who sell these supplements. If these guys were not on PEDs, these supplements would simply not sell. If you gave the same testosterone booster to a guy who is like 230 with abs and huge biceps and a guy who's 160 pounds, they sell the same supplement. But the first guy is going to sell much more. Why? Because you're going to associate the image of muscles to the potency of the product, even though that makes absolutely no sense. At this point, the guy doesn't even have to lie to you. Guys who sell supplements don't even tell you that, oh, it's this supplement that made me big. They don't have to. You are going to create that connection in your head. They don't even have to go there. And the proof I have that steroids and the image of the person selling the product is more important than the product itself is the history of the fitness industry. Remember when this all started? Remember when supplements started to become big, when all of these programs started to become available to the public? It is directly correlated with the advent of PDUs. It was in the 60s and 70s. And you see that with the first muscle building magazines. All of these magazines by 𝘺𝘰𝘵𝘵𝘮. Why exactly were they created? Was it to help people? Remember, the scheme and the pyramid scheme is not there to help people. It's there to keep the people at the top rich and to keep the pyramid going. So look at the things that were placed in the magazine itself. Look at the things that were bringing in resources. These supplement ads. The very first issues of these magazines already had commercials for whey protein. Why? Well, because the magazine was a front. The point was to be able to sell the protein. And the marketing was, what do we place? What image do we create around the commercial to make it so that people will buy? And the answer is, you put pictures of bodybuilders on PEDs with big muscles. And that way, the product is going to be a big hit. And that worked perfectly well. This also explains to you why steroids were absolutely necessary for the creation of the fitness industry. If we were to look at the number one factor that made it so that the industry is what it is today, we can point to anabolic steroids, because before them, there was no industry. And it has nothing to do with people not having a capitalistic sense or the desire to make money. Natural bodybuilders had that desire in the 1910s, 1920s, but they never managed. Why? The image that they had to project was, one, not potent enough, they were not big enough, but most importantly, and that is truly the kicker, they had nothing to sell. Because if you're natural, what are you going to sell to people? Hard work, proper programming? These things are not sexy. These things don't sell because they require work on behalf of the person who purchased. Look at the type of product that PED users push on Instagram and on YouTube. For the most part, it's going to be things that are supposed to work by themselves, without you having to put in any effort. Is it any wonder, therefore, that it is much more palatable? If PEDs were never invented, I firmly believe that the fitness industry would have never actually been created. And the interesting part about this cycle that has been engineered by this relationship between the enhanced influencer and the base, the user base that, may I remind you, is made up of naturals and almost only naturals, also means that the people that are at the top have in their best interest the fact that you stay at the bottom. So they don't want you to be able to move up, but most importantly, they would like you to keep paying. They want to keep you in the system. What they absolutely don't want is for the gig to be up and you to stop paying into the entire thing. So what do? How do they keep you ignorant enough, but also small enough to make sure that you never break through, that you never actually emancipate yourself from them? Because in truth, most beginners, if they manage to get results from all of these supplements and things like this, you could believe that at some point they would either maintain their use, so they would never increase their purchases, or they would move on. They would actually create their own way, pave their own way. Instead, what you see is a pool of people, the minions, that are going in circles and never go anywhere. And the reason why they don't go anywhere is because the people that sell them products make sure that they don't actually leave. And how do you do that? Well, for novices, it's actually simple. You sell them products that do nothing, and you give them advice or programs that don't get them anywhere, that keep them small. That way, you're certain that the person is going to remain a faithful client. And you could tell me, well, that makes absolutely no sense. Anyone who is faced with the realization that their money, that the money they invested gets them nowhere, is going to leave. And this is where you're wrong, because there are in truth 3 reactions to people becoming privy of the fitness industry and what it does. And you will notice that almost none of them result in them actually leaving the grasp of the industry. If anything, it keeps them there. So the very first reaction that might occur if you start realizing that something is up is that you realize that the entire thing was a scam and you leave. All right, that's the one that I hope would occur the most. Sadly, it's the one that occurs the least. And on top of that, even when this occurs, it still branches out into 2 choices. One of them is that the person who realized that the industry was lying to them just gives up. And that's what happened with the person who actually wrote the original article. They realized that the fitness industry was lying to them, that it was all about PEDs, and they decided that it must have meant that the only way to build a good physique was PEDs. So they just gave up outright and they became black-pilled. That is one of the 2 choices. The second choice is to realize that the evil was always the industry and not fitness in particular. This is the rarest occurrence. One of the most frequent occurrences is the second one, which is that you end up assigning the blame of the scam on the individual that blames you instead of the fitness industry in general. And this leads people to jump from influencer to influencer. I'm sure you've seen this. Someone who says, oh, I used to follow this guy, but he was lying to me. He was a scum artist. And now I moved on to this guy. This guy is honest. Is the dude correct? No, absolutely not. The second guy is also a scam artist. He's also after his money. But why can't he recognize it? Well, it's because these people refuse to see patterns. And therefore, they can never see systems. Because a system is a number of patterns that are going to be connected one to another and that are going to be carried forth by the individuals that espouse said patterns. If you're not able to connect the behavior of individual A with individual B, you're going to move on to individual C, then D, etc., etc. And it's made even worse by the fact that the industry is drama heavy. How many times have you seen someone, a big influencer, being taken down by a bigger influencer that then recuperates all of their followers? And the guy say, oh, thank you for saving me from this guy who was taking my money. Is the second guy not taking your money as well? Yes, he is, but you have yet to realize it because you believe he is your savior. That, of course, is fanboyism, but it's what most people do. People like this never actually learn from their mistake. And in a sense, it's a form of insanity. You know, people say that insanity is doing the same thing again and again and thinking that you're going to get a different outcome. I believe that we have something similar here because for the industry to still be going, there must be a reason. And the reason is that people never learn. There is an endless influx of noobs and novices that enter the industry and they enter from the bottom, of course. They make up the Minion base. Are these people learning from the mistakes of their predecessors? Absolutely not. The same guy can be scammed 5 times by the same dude. He might move on. A newbie is going to enter the pool and is going to get scammed again by the same tactics. It's the reason why the fitness industry has been using the same strategies since the 70s. And it's not going to change anytime soon because people don't recognize patterns. And you can't really blame them when you're a noob. Of course, you don't have the history of being scammed. You don't have the knowledge that someone like me has. And therefore, you are very easy to target. But you could think that with time, videos like this one would have been made. And they have. I'm not the first one to notice all of these things. But the issue is that it cannot compete with the type of marketing that is being employed by these people. The type of marketing that leads to the third occurrence, the third type of people that realize that there is something fishy with the industry, and that is the ones that join them. The ones that, as I told you, think that they can make it to the second stratus, that can make it big. And this means, in the fitness industry, taking PEDs. It's all of these young men who take PEDs because they think that by doing so, they're going to be able to be in a position of power. This is very vicious if you think about it, because the second they make it, if they do make it, they're going to turn around and sell the same bullshit they've been sold to impressionable young men just in order to make money. These people are entirely treacherous in their behavior. And for the most part, these are the ones that we call fake natties. And I think it is very important to point out what these people are doing. You know, the biggest crime of fake natties is not lying. Instead, what they have done that is truly condemnable is the killing of the trust. They have murdered the trust that people can have in influencers. Because, of course, you get betrayed 1 time, 2 times, 3 times by people who say they're natty, sell you supplements to get big, and eventually you find out that they're on drugs. Something is going to happen to you, and that something is going to be that you're going to stop trusting the industry. That is a good thing. It is a bad thing if it transforms into you not trusting yourself and then becoming black-pilled and thinking that you cannot make it big naturally, which is sadly, as I said, one of the most common occurrence for people who realize that the entire thing is actually a pyramid scheme. Now, with that being said, it truly is unfathomable that the thing could still be standing. As I said, isn't someone already aware? Hasn't been efforts put forth to actually reveal the entire charade? Things have been put in place and people have been aware, but it doesn't really change anything. And the reason why is for what I just told you. It's because a logical explanation always gets trampled by an emotional manipulation, always. And the power of Ponzi schemes relies entirely on 2 psychological factors that pull on the strings of the hearts of the people who fall for it. And these 2 factors are desire and ignorance. The 2 need to go hand in hand. Desire in being responsive when you're being shown the image of your desire, of something that you want, that it gets you moving, and ignorance, the inability to understand that this thing being dangled in front of your face is actually a hook. If the 2 go hand in hand, then you are cooked. And sadly, most men possess both traits. Most men are controlled by their desires. Most men are ignorant of their own flaws. If you're young, it's absolutely normal. But this is why Ponzi schemes tend to actually prey on vulnerable people, on people that are going to be susceptible to that type of trick. So the trick for the fitness industry is simple. The gains that you are promised with all of these supplements and programs make you believe that you need the product sold to you to grow. And because you want muscles above all things, your brain shuts off. There is a part of you that knows that it is bullshit. You know it. And yet you're still going to fall for it times and times again. I've seen that. Every time I make a video about supplements, you have a large portion of people in the comments who are going to say things like, well, logically, of course, this looks like a scam, but on the off chance it's not a scam, I should really invest in the product. You saw that with testosterone and ecdysterone. Why do people act like this? Well, it's the lottery analogy I already told you. You think to yourself that it would be a much bigger loss if you didn't play because you lose the chance of actually winning millions, whereas if you play, you just lose a few dollars. But the issue is that the entire industry relies on this. The $30 billion that the industry makes a year in the US alone relies on individuals who each independently say to themselves, oh, you know what, might as well. You never know, it might work. This is how the cash is being made. And this is the idea that these people want you to have in your mind. They want you to think that there is a chance. That is the desire and the ignorance at work. And you also will realize that when it comes to muscle and products that are supposed to give you muscles, the industry also plays off of your fear of not being man enough. Most of these products, and we're going to get back to that, actually are means to sell you masculinity. They're means to sell you something that is going to make you more of a man. Because at the end of the day, why do you want muscle? Why do I want muscles? Well, it's because it's masculine. It gives you a higher status as a male, more of a chance to get a mate. It's going to get you respected. It's going to allow you to have a better self-image, etc., etc. It's not limited to muscles, which is why I always love when I see people just equate bodybuilding to being vain. It's more than that. It's a deep psychological drive that every single male on the planet has. Strength and muscles go hand in hand. And therefore, it is no wonder that the industry would insist on these points when they're trying to sell you something. But it also is interesting to see that this directly correlates with the type of people that try to sell you the product. As I told you, there are agents that are being hired by the industry to sell you something, and they have to fit a certain image. You can have a skinny McGee with glasses try to sell you supplements that make you big. It simply won't work. So the industry needed people to be big and also needed people to get bigger, to get leaner, to be more shredded, which is why the advent of PDUs was not motivated by individual drive. It wasn't necessarily that bodybuilders wanted by themselves to be bigger. It's that the industry that backed them off pushed them in that direction by giving money to the biggest and the freakiest. And by doing that, it also killed natural bodybuilding. You cannot compete against an empire that has billions of dollars. It's not possible. But since naturals don't have the ability to produce products to sell, we eventually get completely outmatched. And that is only normal. Money speaks, and the absence of money is going to be your demise, which is why the fitness industry nowadays, at its core, is reliant entirely on the ability to push the image of muscularity, using people, influencers that themselves, via their muscles or their image, are going to sell you the idea of masculinity that they then connect to their product and try to sell to you. Try right now to think about any or of the many masculinity gurus that exist on Instagram. What do they look like? For the most part, they're going to be jacked, they're going to have a beard, they're going to have pretty girls around them, they're going to shoot guns, they're going to have a cigar, they're going to have a lot of money, a lot of power, they're going to show you all of their wealth. All of these are external signs of masculinity that your brain directly responds to. The guy doesn't even have to speak to you. You see him and you think masculinity. Why? It's because we are a generation that has been deprived of it for so long that the only stimulus we recognize as being masculine are the external ones, the ones that our eyes can detect. Even though masculinity in truth is mostly internal. It's why I said in the past, you cannot buy masculinity. Femininity, on the other hand, is much more external, although there are internal factors to it as well. But it's interesting to see that we have been reduced to a state where the one way to be a man is to look like a man. And what does looking like a man mean? It means looking like the people that sell you the image of the man and that get you to buy the product that is going to allow you to resemble them. All of that is, of course, extremely shallow, but is it any wonder? Take again one look at all of the masculinity gurus on the internet. They are very shallow themselves. They are all flash and no fire. There is nothing to them. There is no substance to their being. They have no ideology. They have no philosophy to their life. They are all about the being, about looking a certain way, acting a certain way for the camera. All of that, again, to create that image that is entirely divorced from the development of positive masculine values, like dedication, for example, pain tolerance, sacrifice, none of which are going to be sold to you. Because how do you sell these things? You can't. It's the same thing with natural bodybuilding and enhanced bodybuilding. Actual masculinity cannot be sold because it's not something that can be marketed because the product that you wish to sell cannot be materialized in real life. So there is no market for that. You have to create a market and therefore you have to have a physical item to buy. Physical items that every single time fail to fulfill the role that they're supposed to fulfill. It's what I told you about the supplements, the programs, the diet plans. But what matters is that you think they will fulfill it. It is the image and the symbol attached to the product that actually makes you purchase it and not the product itself. And it is the intangible benefits attached to a physical item that makes it so marketable. You take protein powder, you attach to it the image of muscle. You're still only selling protein powder, but the reason why it sells is because of the symbol. It's because of what you attach to it. All of the things that the fitness industry sell to you do only one thing. They tap into the desire for muscle mass and they sell you that very desire. This is how vicious it is. I believe that social media and all of these influencers that aim to get into your wallet function a bit like a 𝘰𝘵𝘵𝘵𝘮 mirror. If you are familiar with Harry Potter, 𝘤𝘰𝘵𝘵𝘵𝘮 is a mirror that is supposed to show you your deepest desires. And I think that if I could take you in front of one such mirrors, you would actually reflect your own image but bigger, with more muscles. And maybe with girls, maybe with sports car, maybe with fame and adoration. This is something that social media understands perfectly. The top of the pyramid knows exactly that this is what you want. So what do? They show you that image and they tell you, hey, you want this? Buy the product. This is what is going to allow you to get all of your dreams and make them all come true. But since they can't sell you muscle mass directly, they have to find a way around it. Of course, if someone told you, hey, pay me $200 and you're going to get jacked, you would understand that there is a problem because there's no in between. Right? There is no product that is supposed to create the reaction. And so you think, well, you're lying to me, right? You're selling me a magical product. And yet, if I attach the same idea of getting pounds of lean mass to a pill, now it's going to work. This is how the industry functions. It taps into that desire in your brain to get results for nothing, and it utilizes it directly to take your money. So at the end of the day, when you buy these products, what you're buying is you're only buying your own desires. They're only selling you your own desires. You are paying for the ability to fulfill a wish that is not going to be fulfilled by their product and could only be fulfilled by your own action. And this is why motivation is so key, and why all of these posts, all of these athletes try to motivate you as much as possible. Is it so that you can actually act and actually get muscular? No, absolutely not. What they want instead is to excite your brain. What they want you to do is they want to start paying for the ability to believe in yourself, because that's what you do with these things. Again, keep in mind, you're buying your own desires. Did you need this pill or this program to believe in yourself in the first place? To actually follow your own desires? Absolutely not. But the industry managed to place itself in between you and your goal and tell you, hey, if you want to pass through, you have to pay. And if you don't pay, you're never going to get what you want. I am the mirror of your desire, and therefore I am also its guardians. You would be shocked to see the amount of people that unconsciously believe that. Consciously, they don't. If I told them that, they would laugh in my face. But then you look at their bank statement, they spend so much money for the industry that the only logical conclusion is that they have actually been convinced of that. They have been convinced that their potential is under lock, and the only way to get through is to buy the key that the industry is willing to sell them. Programs, supplements, all of these things, they don't build muscle. You do. The action that you go through is going to create the result. But until you realize that, you're going to keep paying for something that you would get naturally if you just put in the work. And the reason why it is so easy to make that product widespread and to utilize the same strategy for every single person is for the reason I explained earlier. It's because all men share the same dreams pretty much. We're all obsessed with the idea of masculinity. So a blanket marketing strategy is going to work for most cases. They don't even have to adapt it. And if you look at the nature of the product, and again, the nature of the marketing that hasn't changed for almost 50 years, you also realize that it's because the thing that is sold to you is high energy, low substance. Just like the people that sell it. All of these guys that gesticulate for the camera and talk loud and act very masculine. They show you a surface level thing, and their products are the exact same. They're flashy on the outside, but on the inside, they are actually entirely devoid of anything. These are the types of products that are the easiest to sell. Just like the opposite is the hardest type of product to sell. The ones that look terrible from the outside, but actually get you results in the long run, aka natural bodybuilding, that is not something that is going to be attractive for anyone. And yet, it's what leads to true masculinity. It's what leads to true happiness. It's what leads to true fulfillment in this fitness game. But to be able to realize that, you first and foremost have to turn your back to instantaneous gratification, something that most people are incapable of doing, and the industry is fully aware of that. This is why it is still afloat and why it's still going to be afloat for the 100 years to come. Because you also have to keep in mind that the people at the top are not stupid. They understand that there are going to be cases where people are going to realize that the tangible product they bought was not actually linked with the intangible benefits they thought they were going to get. And in that case, it can actually spell trouble for the top of the pyramid, because if the minions revolt, as I told you, the pyramid crumble. But don't worry about it. The industry has already proven that they have the ability to pivot when things like this happen. So for example, something you will see a ton is people that are going to tell you, hey, you bought my supplement or program and you did not get any results. It's because of you. Of course, because their product is bunk. It's empty of any substance, and they know it. If it doesn't work, you truly thought that they were going to take responsibility? No, you are the one that can get the results. So if you don't get the results, they're correct. It is your fault. It is a foolproof strategy. And on the other hand, If the product does work, which in reality means that you manage to get results, what do? They take credit. Because again, there is no substance to the product. So whatever happens to the person that consumes the product still is going to be beneficial to the industry. They can relinquish responsibility or take credit. Both are going to serve the same purpose, and that purpose is to keep people consuming, to keep people buying the product, and to make sure also that the rebellion of the minions never actually occur, because for the rebellion to occur, you would need the ability to understand that the product itself, not the results that it gives, is the issue, right? Many people get fooled by the issue. You saw that recently with the 𝘰𝘵𝘵𝘮, more plates debacle, where I made a full video explaining to people that these two did nothing wrong. Why did I make this video? To make you understand a simple fact. It was never about the fucking supplement being bunk. It was about the supplement itself, about the nature of what a supplement is supposed to be. You buying the supplement thinking it was going to make you big was the problem. Whether it was going to work or not did not matter, and these two guys know it perfectly well because they're part of the industry and they understand that they're at the top, you're the minion, and until you open your eyes, they're going to stay in their position and you're going to be a good little pay pig for them. Because just like with any Ponzi scheme or pyramid scheme, the only person that benefits from the sale of the products is the person that sells it always. Anyone that is in the third stratus, aka the majority, is just being flayed alive. If it weren't the case, a pyramid scheme wouldn't be called a pyramid scheme. And this is why the fitness industry is one, and also why it is so important to wake up from the nightmare and stop feeding into the system. The best way to get rid of it is just to stop playing. I know that many people have dreams of trying to infiltrate the top stratus and dynamite it from inside. The second you make it to these stratuses, you can only make it by cheating, and therefore you're going to become just like these people. Look at the amount of politicians that tried. They were going to fix the world, then they become big bosses, they become people with a ton of power, and the second it happens, they become just like the types they were trying to fight. The only way to make the pyramid crumble is to get the base to actually leave, to remove the base. Is it realistic? No, I told you it's not realistic. The endless flow of noobs that is going to make it into the base, that are going to be completely unaware, are going to keep it afloat. What I hope, however, is that many people who have been exposed to the pyramid for long enough are going to realize what is happening, are going to refuse to consume, and are going to save themselves. Can we kill the pyramid? I don't know. I hope we can at some point. But the most important part for you is to just not play in the game. Because as I told you, not only do you get your money stolen from you when you fall for a Ponzi scheme, but you also get your dreams and desires hijacked and used against you and weaponized against you. It's what I told you at the very start. I firmly believe that people who buy into the fitness industry not only stagnate, they also regress. Because your ability to progress forward is impaired now. You have bought into the low substance, high energy product. Turn your attention instead towards the high substance, low energy product, aka hard work, aka the development of your personality, aka anything that actually in reality costs nothing. Because fitness costs nothing and masculinity cannot be bought. And I'm going to leave you with these wise words. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.